Here's Susie, and she's all a-tingle about her shiny new 73. She slides the key into the ignition lock, and as in her old car, she pumps the accelerator pedal 3 times. Then she turns the key to start the engine. Well, it didn't start. And now Susie is not so happy. In fact, she's getting pretty warm because she's already late for an important appointment. And now this. And there it is. A new car that started at a touch yesterday when it was delivered, but this morning, no start. The reason? Those pumps on the pedal flooded the engine. You see, Susie was so anxious to drive her new car away that she didn't read the starting instructions on the sun visor sleeve, and the salesman never got a chance to talk about it. Also, Susie's mind was probably on other things, so we'd guess that the operator's manual, which also describes the proper starting procedures, is still tucked away unopened and unread in the glove compartment of her new car. However, Susie is not alone in this. Even some good technicians have gone astray when troubleshooting starting complaints because they did not consider incorrect starting procedure as a possible cause of the trouble. We can only guess why Susie pumped the pedal when starting her old car, but we do know that this practice is generally a no-no on today's cars. We also know that specified procedures must be followed or the engine will be difficult to start or may not start at all. The reasons why starting procedures are so important should be old stuff to master technicians who are familiar with the effects that the addition of emission controls have had on engine operation in general. Our engines have been redesigned. Starting and running mixtures are now leaner, and ignition timing control has been modified, all to reduce emissions. As a result, engine operation and emission control functions are now so closely integrated that you cannot deviate far from adjustment specifications anywhere along the line without causing trouble of some sort. And for the same reasons, engine starting procedures must also follow the book. In other words, correct procedures are as important to starting as correct adjustments are to engine operation. Now, for the benefit of those who are not convinced that correct starting procedures are important, be they owners, car salesmen, or technicians, let's take a close look at the overall starting situation. We will cover starting procedures under 4 general conditions: engine cold, engine warm, engine below zero, and engine standing unstarted for several days. In each case, we'll describe the procedure and then explain what happens, assuming, of course, that everything is adjusted and operating properly. Let's begin with initial cold starts when the thermometer reads above 60. The emphasis here is on cam starting, which, as you know, sets up the fast idle cam to hold the throttle valve in the correct starting position while the engine is being cranked. Before cranking, you depress the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor and then release it. Lift your foot off the pedal to remove any pressure which could release the fast idle cam prematurely. Pressing the pedal down does several things. It unlocks the fast idle cam so the cam and choke valve can move to appropriate starting positions. It also pumps in a charge of fuel to wet the intake manifold walls so the starting mixture will not be seriously leaned out by surface absorption. Now, with the cam and choke in starting position, you energize the starter and hold until the engine starts. The accelerator pedal must remain untouched, even though the engine is now running. Allow the engine to run approximately 5 to 10 seconds, still without touching the accelerator pedal or shifting into gear. This permits the mixture flow and the combustion process to stabilize, so the engine will run without faltering. After this initial warm-up, tap the accelerator with the foot to allow the fast idle cam to reposition itself at a lower speed point. But do it gently, because an abrupt jab on the pedal can cause the cam to drop too far, and this may allow the engine to stall. Now you can shift into gear and drive the car away. However, avoid rapid or wide-open acceleration for the first few minutes, or the engine may stumble or stall. For initial starts, when the temperature is below 60 degrees, use the same procedure as for above 60, but allow the engine to run longer, about 10 to 15 seconds, before tapping the pedal to reduce fast idle speed. In either case, above or below 60 degrees, if excessive accelerator pumping has flooded the engine, it can usually be cleared out by flooring the pedal to admit extra air while cranking. If you momentarily stop cranking to protect the starter, continue holding the pedal down to the floor. That way you won't pump in extra fuel, which can extend the flooding condition. And this brings us to restarting after a die-out from an initial start. Here, the same procedure is applied across the board, regardless of the air temperature. In this case, you repeat the initial starting procedure again. Depress the pedal to the floor, release it, and then lift your foot off the pedal. This allows the choke and fast idle cam to resume their starting positions. The manifold wall surfaces are now wetted, so the engine should start easily. Restart the engine and allow it to run at fast idle for a couple of seconds so combustion can stabilize. Then tap the pedal to reduce idle speed. Adequate warm-up time is the answer to most engine die-out problems. In the few seconds it takes to fasten seat and shoulder belts, to adjust the rear-view mirror and tune the radio, the engine will stabilize enough so the car can be driven without stalling. Next, we come to restarting after partial warm-up. This is the engine which has been running for 1 to 5 minutes after the initial start and then stopped. The choke is now open and the fast idle cam is in off position. There is fuel vapor in the intake manifold, but it is still relatively cold, so we have in effect a lean starting condition. To supply the enrichment needed, we depress the accelerator pedal halfway to the floor. Then we release the pedal so the throttle can close and trap the fuel vapors in the manifold. As soon as the engine starts, depress the pedal part way to open the throttle to get a running mixture. At this stage, the idle mixture alone is not enough to keep the engine running. Now, if there's no start after cranking 5 seconds with the throttle closed, again press the pedal down part way so extra air can mix with the added fuel. No start after cranking 10 seconds probably means that the engine is flooded, so you'll have to floor the pedal to clear it out. In any case, do not operate the starter longer than 1 minute for each attempt. Wait for 2 minutes before trying again so you won't overheat the starter. The next general starting procedure should be used when the engine is warm, regardless of whether air temperature is above or below 60 degrees. Here, the warmed-up engine has been stopped for 1 to 30 minutes, or up to an hour in warm weather. In this case, you press the accelerator pedal down about 1/3 of the way and hold it in that position before cranking the engine. Then turn the key to start in the usual manner. The engine has plenty of mixture vapor trapped in the intake manifold, so the throttle is opened both to let excess vapors escape and to admit extra air when cranking. The important point here is that the throttle must be positioned before the engine is cranked. This gives the fuel added by pedal movement a chance to vaporize and offsets possible flooding. The part-open throttle also acts as a damping valve, which reduces the chances of backfiring through the carburetor. A warm engine should normally start after cranking 1 or 2 seconds. If the engine does not respond within 5 seconds, press the pedal to the floor and hold it until the engine starts. Now, when starting an engine at temperatures below 0, or one which has been standing unstarted for several days, we use the same basic procedure in both cases. In the cold engine, we have poor mixture atomization because the engine parts are chilled. In addition, cold air and fuel do not mix well, so the basic starting mixture tends to be very lean. The engine, which has not been started for several days, also presents a lean starting mixture problem. Here, the intake manifold wall surfaces are dry, and the carburetor fuel level is usually low because of vapor transfer to the holding canister. In both cases, a rich starting mixture should be available to all cylinders so the engine can start quickly. This is especially important where a cold battery and thickened oil slows cranking. Incidentally, if the temperature drops to more than 20 below 0, be sure to start in neutral so you won't have to shift through reverse when getting underway. Now, to enrich the starting mixture, press the pedal to the floor 2 or 3 times, holding it about 1/4 open as it comes up from the final stroke. Then crank in the usual manner until the engine starts. Starting under these conditions may take 5 or 10 seconds, or longer, depending on how cold it is or how long the car has been standing. Generally, the colder it is or the longer the car stands, the longer it takes to start. After the engine starts and runs for a few seconds, slowly remove foot pressure from the accelerator pedal so the fast idle cam will control engine speed during the initial warm-up. Let the engine run 15 or 20 seconds, or longer, before dropping the fast idle speed. As with cranking, initial warm-up time depends on the temperature or how long the engine has been standing. Here again, avoid rapid or wide-open throttle acceleration before the engine stabilizes. If the engine dies out, it can be restarted using the procedure described for initial starting at lower temperatures. Although this detailed coverage of starting procedure is intended mainly for technicians, it can also be most helpful in explaining the late model situation to others. For easy retention, Basic starting procedure can be summarized like this. Engine cold. Engine warm. Engine below zero or standing unstarted several days. Engine flooded. And that's the story on getting them started. The main point to remember is that the emission controls which are built into our late model engines have made them more sensitive than those of the past. So we all have to alter our driving habits accordingly.